Yeah, great question. Pardon my bluntness here, but you're a senior stakeholder. And I mean, of course, if we're talking about a learning manager or someone who just comes from the learning field, they'll get it. But someone who's not in the learning field simply will not care about social learning. In the same way that they won't care about discussion boards or self-paced or live or any of these details about what makes for a great learning experience. You and I and all of us know what leads to great learning and all the different components that come into it. But to argue for that on a granular level at that level, maybe we need to pivot a bit and maybe we need to talk about other things, right? So social learning, and let's talk about this, in terms of business case and business impact. Can social learning lead to more efficiency in the business? Can we reduce our training budget, our seat time, one of my favorite words? Can we reduce our seat time by having more efficient learning experiences by making it more social? Can we have a community of practice that could potentially replace a 2-hour classroom setting? Now you're starting to talk the language of the business, right? And say, okay, well, and this is also bringing it forward to your stakeholder group and be like, right now we're doing a 12-hour program. And it's a lot to ask of our people, 12 hours, over the course of, a couple of months or whatever that is. What if we could cut that down to 10 hours? And what if we could transfer that into a social component? And, we might need to try and see how this works. We might need to do a pilot. But if I can extract that time and, take it away from logistics of getting people in a room, all that kind of stuff, and we just build more of a community around it, that might actually save us, some of our training budget. But more importantly, and this is where we're kind of like sneaking the vegetables into our conversation, but more importantly, it actually might lead to bigger impact with our people because they might share best practices that, aren't necessarily being happening in the live session, and it's like another way of putting it is, how do we reduce dependency on our facilitators? We know that we can't, scale up our project, for example. We can't scale up our program. We've got 5 great facilitators, Josh, and we don't have budget to hire another 5 more. Well, what if we turn this into peer pods? What if we turn this into... So talking about social learning without talking about social learning, that I would say is, and that goes for a lot of things in L&D, right? Apart from our big buzzwords, microlearning, gamification, all that jazz that tend to resonate, people don't necessarily have a lot of energy or a threshold to talk about these. Like one of my favorite words, for example, is design. And I love talking about the design of things and how well things are designed or not. But I also know to never bring that up to that level as well, too, because it's like design. No. We need to either deliver this quicker, cheaper, or more efficiently. Like, let's talk about that world as well, too. So just taking the things that are on your plate and your agenda that are good for the team, good for the organization, but finding a way to transpose it or translate it into, okay, well, what, on a business level, what are the pros and cons of social learning? And maybe that's a great exercise, for your team to sit down and be like, we believe in social learning. We believe in it pedagogically. We know it's a better user experience as well, too. But on a business level, what can social learning take us? Where can it take us? What can it do?